Hey, I'm Felissa Rose, and you're watching Keto and Crime.
To another edition of Thought Crime and Keto and Crime. Today we have part 2 on our good friend, the Japanese cannibal. This was actually a case that my partner in crime here, Michelle, actually suggested. I had no idea. I hadn't even heard of it. And then I started researching it and I texted her, I'm like, oh my God, this guy eats people.
Honestly, Tracy, I thought that I had told you, oh, there's a documentary about him on YouTube. It's called The Cannibal That Walked Free.
You told me there was a documentary. I may not have caught the title.
No, I for sure scrolled back and was like, oh, oops. So no, I meant to warn you about the cannibalism part, but surprise?
It was actually fun. I'm okay with that. I've actually been researching there's actually other well-known cannibals. I mean, besides our good friend Jeffrey Dahmer, this guy, and then there was actually 2 cannibals that met up on a dark web forum called the Cannibal Cafe. And basically, as a sexual proclivity, one ate the other, and he actually walked free, and this was in Germany.
I remember hearing about that because didn't essentially the guy who was eaten, didn't he like give quote unquote permission?
He did. There was actually written consent. There was actually written consent saying that he wanted to do it, and the German courts had to let the guy go. I mean, other than that, he was an upstanding citizen, a business person.
I mean, that's a pretty big other than that.
Yeah, it is. I mean, but I'm just saying there was no laws, there was no prerequisite cases set for that. There was no
precedent. There was no precedent is the word you're looking for.
Yeah, precedents. There were no precedents for that. So the poor judge was just like, well, okay.
Imagine you went to college, you went to law school, you passed the bar exam, you work your butt off as a lawyer, you become a judge, and then you have to try that case.
You're like, okay, now where did you 2 meet?
You have to create the legal precedent for is cannibalism cool if the person who got eaten said it was all right.
Yeah.
Well, that's a whole other podcast. Honestly, we could probably talk about the ethics of that.
Yeah, we may do that. We'll probably do that one. A lot of our subscribers have requested that one, so we probably will dive into that one. That would be interesting.
I mean, so yes. So anyway, that's sort of the interesting thing about this case, the Issei Sagawa case, is not so much the cannibal. I hate to say that. Like, the cannibalism obviously is kind of what makes it sensational and really important. But the thing that takes us from just being like kind of just like a gross, morbid cannibal story into something fascinating is the fact that he's like, dude is still alive.
And living a free, I think he's like 68 now.
Wikipedia said 70.
70, okay. I knew it was like that because the last interview with him, he was like 58, and he was like walking free by Vice News, and it was like walking free in Tokyo. You know, just
under like a. Well, okay. So this man is 4'9".
Yeah, the Savage Hobbit,
which is very small.
It's almost a little person. I mean, really.
Almost. I wonder what the threshold for that is.
I'd have to look that up.
I bet there's a.
Yeah, there's got to be. I think there's a cutoff for both men and women and how you're actually considered having dwarvism. You know, well, he doesn't have any of the other symptoms of dwarvism, but when you're actually considered a little person rather than just a short person.
Right. Where's the line for that?
Right.
Comment below about that. So also so he's 4'9".
Mhm.
He did this crime in Paris, France,
1981,
in
I believe.
1981. It's almost like baller. That's horrible. That's not the right word. But like, you are the only short Asian man in all of France.
Yeah, and you get away with this.
And you're just like,
eat this Dutch girl.
And then stuff her leftover body parts into 2 giant suitcases that I sort of need help carrying.
Yeah, and then get caught trying to dump them into the moor.
This is...
It's a Monty Python skit,
like,
if it wasn't so awful.
I know. He's like, I'm retired. And then he sits before he's able to get the suitcases and I have to be honest, this is really awful and morbid of me, but when I imagine this scene, the suitcases are bigger than comically large. Compared to him, the suitcases are huge, and he looks like the boss baby, where he's tiny and he's got these giant suitcases, and so he gets tired. At this crowded park, he's going to dispose his body in this like public body of water, and so he sits down and has a little nap.
Yeah,
has a little nap, and then wakes up with some dude, some now traumatized for the rest of his life Frenchman, opening the suitcase.
Mm-hmm.
And then what is this?
These are human remains.
Teeny motherfucker do?
Yeah.
Just gets up and saunters into the night like it's no big deal.
Yeah. Oh, you finished disposing of them.
Right.
And I'm gonna go back home.
Super nonchalant the whole time. It's fully Dexter shit.
Yeah, it is. I
think Dexter shit.
I think we're dealing with a full-on psychopath and sociopath. I know it's usually hard to be both. I mean, psychopaths are a lot more common than sociopaths, but I think he's both because he definitely doesn't have feeling for other people, and that's the main.
No,
main.
It's like like this is how like toddlers like hit people and stuff because they don't understand that like other people have feelings.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that.
Yeah,
he's the same size too.
But
kind of an asshole.
If you go back into this guy's history, to me, it's obvious that his parents did everything for him. His parents were pretty wealthy. I think his father was a lawyer, from what I read. He was born in 1949. But this wasn't the first time he had been caught doing something nefarious. He was actually caught in Tokyo in a German girl's apartment trying to basically take a piece of her ass, just to go eat. Yes. And his father got that thrown out.
I know. So, like, in the documentary, they mentioned this whole thing about his uncle playing some sort of weird cannibal game with them. I just feel like that is irrelevant.
Yeah, I mean,
story.
I played all kinds of things as a kid.
But also, I mean, how often with little kids are like, I'm gonna eat you,
Yeah, it's common, and his brother's not a cannibal, at least as far as we know.
No, and as far as we know, his brother isn't a cannibal. And then, but so I don't know. He develops this like reverse Asian fetish.
He's very, very infatuated with Western women, like people from Western Europe, United States.
He saw Attack of the 50-Foot Woman.
Yeah.
And was like, now that's something.
Yeah.
The thing about this attack on this German woman, he clearly had no plan.
No, he followed her home.
Like, the thinnest of plans. The thinnest of plans.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I'll just take a big old bite out of her ass.
Did he think she wouldn't wake up?
Right. Yes. I mean, I guess so. I don't know.
He didn't even have chloroform or anything. You would think he would want to knock somebody out.
Maybe he heard like Rip Van Winkle and he was like, I bet all white
Germans
people sleep like that. Yeah, I bet that's all. Like, So he breaks in, and she
Attack.
Wakes up, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
and is like, the fuck, and fights this dude off.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
then
I'm
he gets
sure.
arrested.
Yeah, she knocked him to the floor, and he ran or tried to run. And I can just see now. This is going to be terrible, but I can see this big old German Fraulein with this little, almost little person, Japanese guy, just casually pushing him to the ground. I mean, she may not have been, what we consider a big Fraulein, but
sure.
But she was
Zaftig is the word.
Yeah.
German.
But if she was, if she was near what most normally height German women, she was probably 5'8", 5'9". So she was going to be towering above them.
Probably had a foot on him.
Yeah, yeah.
But also, though, when you wake up in the middle of the night, you're not immediately full power. I'm not immediately full.
No, I'm not either. But
full power.
Expect to see this little Shih Tzu trying to take a bite out of your ass.
Yeah.
That's the only. I can just see this little Shih Tzu puppy or Chihuahua going. Rah, 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 rah.
Yeah. Anyway, so he gets arrested and gets charged with attempted rape, but his father
gets him off.
Yeah. But does send him to see a psychiatrist.
Yeah, well, he actually paid the German woman off, and I guess she just dropped the charges. From what I understand, it wasn't like he finagled the legal system. I think he just paid her to drop the charges.
That makes more sense.
Yeah,
that makes more sense. But his dad does send him to a shrink.
Yes.
Who concludes that he's real dangerous.
Yeah, but nothing happens.
So he goes to Paris.
Yeah, he got into, what was the name of the college?
Sorbonne.
Sorbonne. Got in as an exchange student working on his Ph.D. in literature. And went to France.
Yes.
Ironically.
Why is that ironic?
Well, Paris is like the gastronomy capital of the world.
Oh, well, yeah. It's too much. So the documentary that I was watching on YouTube, the cannibal that walked free, at this point when they say that he's going to Paris, they do a lot of really bizarre footage of women, like man on the street style. It's really weird.
Yeah.
It's really weird.
Maybe they were just trying to show why his fascination was with Western women. Because
sure, it's still bizarre.
Yeah, it is. It is. From what he was saying, now I don't know how much I trust him, but from what he was saying is that it's common for Japanese or Asian men in general that live in Asia to have a fascination with, women from Europe and women from the United States because they don't see it a lot.
Well, I think that's like a human nature thing.
Yeah.
A friend of mine from college has this bright red hair, and she lived in and taught in South Korea for a year or so. And she said the kids were always just thrilled about her hair because they'd never seen anyone with orange hair before. Which I think this sounds like we're saying that this is a thing that only Asian people do, but it's not at all. Have you met?
No, I think
have you met anime bros?
No, I just think it
goes this way for sure.
Generally, yeah, I have friends that are anime bros and they're totally into Asian women. Just because they've seen anime. I think it's just typical for you to be interested in whatever you don't see every day.
Yes. Well, it's it feels very exotic and new and exciting. But anyway, here's this tiny creep in France,
right? Who has shown already proclivities for mental illness. From what he said in his interview, as a child, he first got interested in cannibalism because he saw a classmate's thigh during a physical education class, like a male saw his thigh, and he got interested in what it would be like to eat human flesh. And then it kind of, as he discovered girls and realized that he had an issue with puberty and self-pleasuring, that's all we're going to say, it kind of mingled the desire to have.
So,
yeah.
It's like, in some ways, I can understand how those wires can get crossed in someone's head.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
I can too. They're both, eating and sexual pleasure are kind of pleasure points, both of them.
And let's be honest, who hasn't gotten a boner from a really good hamburger?
Yeah. I mean,
like a half chub.
Yeah, definitely.
That's not a whole one. That'd be weird.
Yeah, exactly. It's. I mean, look at American Pie. They made a whole movie based around that premise.
Around fucking a pie. See, and that, honestly, I think it's better to do it that way than like the other way.
Definitely.
Where you take to fucking food as opposed to
definitely.
eating people.
I mean, the Food and Drug Administration isn't going to come after you for defiling food. So
right, and also you don't have to murder anyone. I don't know.
Yeah. And evidently he had some bestiality stuff going on too with
Interesting.
the dog.
Interesting.
So,
I didn't know about that.
Yeah, I read that he had actually.
Oh, is that why in the thing he's got the like robot dog that sleeps and breathes, and he says, "I can't have a dog."
Yeah.
So I keep. Oh, okay. He didn't mention he can't have a dog
because he did weird things
for the dog's sake. I just assumed that like his apartment building didn't allow pets or something.
No, he can't. He did weird things to the family pet.
Oh no!
As a child, and it said it was tied back to him not being able to self-pleasure, like he couldn't figure out how to masturbate.
Interesting.
So he would put stuff down there and have the dog lick it off. That's exactly what he said, which I'm sorry for my people out there that have weak stomachs. This is not going to be a good one for you to listen to.
I feel like, is this going to be called Muldoon and the Cannibal? Because if it is, then I feel like people will know.
Yeah.
People who are like, that sounds like something that is going to make me
sick. Yeah.
Happy. I shouldn't listen.
Yeah.
So
a lot wrong with this guy on all levels, but yet somehow, because of money or influence or what have you, he ends up on the streets of Paris in 1981.
Mm-hmm. Where he meets this lovely Dutch lady, which it looks like Renée Hartevelt or something, but it's not pronounced like that because she's Dutch.
Exactly.
It was like Renée Hartevelt or something.
Yeah. We'll just call her Renée.
We'll just call her Renée. Sorry, Renée.
She was actually nice to him. The only one in his class that was nice to him.
And then, like, on one hand, for a second, I was like, "Oh, people weren't nice to him." But then on the other hand, I was like, "What kind of creepy shit was this man doing in class?"
Yeah. Because socially awkward didn't begin to describe the last interview that Vice did with him. Just it's a creepy awkward. He was awkward, but he was creepy about being awkward, if that makes sense,
I'm sure that got worse as time went on, but also... Okay, so they go to this dinner. Was it just the two? I think it was just... No.
It was a group dinner.
It was a group dinner.
Mm-hmm.
And then the way he talks about that dinner with this woman is fucking creepy.
Yeah, it is. He talked about how it was at that time because she was smiling at him and talking with him. I'm sure she was smiling and talking with everybody in the group, that he made up his mind he was in love with her, and the only way he could show her true love is to kill and eat her. I mean, you can just ask me out. I mean, I'll be good. You can just ask me out. You don't need to go there.
Yep, he loves her too much. He must eat her. I mean, who among us?
It's like I said, going back to where as a child he got sexual pleasure crossed with eating, and then kind of maybe creepily molded the two.
Yeah.
And I read that usually cannibalism is attached to some sort of sexual need. I mean, even the guys we were talking about that met on the dark web, that was a sexual thing. too.
How
So
could it not be?
yeah.
I mean, I know that's a weird thing to say, but
Even Dahmer. I mean,
it's gotta be. Yeah.
he ate the same people he was sexually attracted to, young boys.
Yeah. Which is like, that seems to be a common theme of like, well, this person was such a hottie or whatever, like, oh, obviously I had to eat them, like, or this like idea that like by consuming a person's flesh, you'll be like closer to them or something.
Yeah, I think it's like the ultimate meshing together. But I'm okay with dinner and dancing.
Yeah.
You don't need to do that.
Yeah, dinner and dancing. I'll send you my nail clippings or something if you want.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know.
Don't need to shoot and eat me.
No, we can work something out. I'm sure of it.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so the next part of this is weird to me. He invites her over to read German poetry, the most beautiful of all the poetry.
Yeah. I think he was, the way that I read some of the articles said that he was afraid she wouldn't come over because, she was fluent in German, French, and English. And I think
Presumably also Dutch.
Yeah, and Dutch, of course. But he was fluent maybe in French and Japanese only. So he had to choose something that would get her, because he had to have somebody to translate for him, in other words. And so I think he chose
wanted
German poetry.
To, like, read it on
video or on audio, like cassette tape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's like, okay. So this time,
and he was going to pay her. He was going to pay her. He said he was going to pay her for her trouble. So maybe she was broke.
I mean, or because she wrote to her parents about meeting him and seemed to think that he was nice enough,
Maybe she liked him too.
I mean, it sounded like she was like, oh, I met this nice
Japanese man.
Nice Japanese man.
But the poem was actually a poem that had overtones of cannibalism.
No.
Yeah, it was.
No
I will
way.
find, for my subscribers, I will try to find out exactly which poem that was and put an excerpt up there for you. But
no fucking way.
That's what one of the articles I read said.
Oh, that's again Dexter shit. This is some stuff that's like on a television show that you're like, this is crazy.
You can't make this up. Who would have a depraved enough mind to make this up?
Right, to make that up. But so so she's like, sure, I'll come over and read you this German cannibal poem.
Mm-hmm.
At this time, it seems like he's got a better plan, or at least like a more fleshed out. I hate to say a more fleshed out plan, but you know what I'm trying to say. Than the time with the German lady. And like, so he's purchased this rifle a few months prior,
and he had already said that he knew he couldn't look her in the eye and do it.
Which
he did care for her. That was the weird thing.
I feel like if you like, maybe at that point, like, reevaluate your choices.
Yeah. If you can't do something to somebody looking them in the eye, then it's probably not a good thing to do.
And like, probably it's not great. What do I know? I'm not a murderer nor a cannibal.
Yeah.
So who knows? Okay. So he's got it. So she's gonna like sit at the desk with the tape recorder and the German cannibal poem, and she's gonna read it. And then he shoots her from behind with the rifle.
In the back of the neck. And she dies instantly. And I'm glad.
Good.
If you have to die instantly is a good way to do it.
Yeah.
And then he had a plan for how he was going to consume her. And it started with eating the buttocks first.
And it's booty first.
I think, ironically, there must have been something, again, psychosexual about that, because it's
yes,
can be considered a sexual area.
Yes. So I've heard a lot of people on the internet say they're gonna eat the booty like groceries, and I don't think they mean this.
No.
But
Maybe
I'm not sure because I'm too
confused.
old and married
Yeah,
to
me too.
understand things like that. I don't know. Maybe there's a spate of sexy cannibalism on the internet. I have no idea. But so he said he's shocked at how the body is, like when he really goes for it.
Yeah, he said that that was the first he had ever consumed, and that he was surprised that it wasn't just cutting into it and finding
like
meat.
There it was. So
it was like several layers of fat and tissue that he said had a weird, almost vegetable taste.
Sweet corn.
Sweet corn was the term.
And I was like, well, there goes one of my favorite vegetables.
No more cream corn for Tracy.
I mean, I'll get over it.
Yeah.
I'll get over it eventually. But so I was kind of surprised at that because I figured that he would have had like medical textbooks as like porn.
Yeah. It seems that, maybe Grey's Anatomy would have been a good way for him to spank the monkey,
And that he would I was just very surprised to hear that, like, even though this had been such an obsession for him, that he had never like done any research at all. I mean, I understand this is 1981 and he can't exactly Google it, but he's at the Sorbonne. They've got
he's a doctoral student. They've got a medical school there. He could probably get some information. If anything, they have anatomy and physiology.
Right,
classes.
Exactly. Or you just get a book out of the library. So that was shocking to me that he hadn't done any kind of research at all. And then he says, Je t'aime. He specified that he told her, I love you, in French. He is still speaking French to this woman's dead body.
Yep. And then proceeds to have post-mortem intercourse with her.
Yes.
And all goes back to this is a sexual experience for him.
Uh-huh.
And
I'm
then
sorry, he says he loves her, I believe, after he's finished
doing his thing.
Yep.
And then proceeds to cut off and consume part of her breasticles. And then I guess cuts her up and saves the parts that he wants. He puts some of it into the mini fridge in his room.
It looked like it was in butcher paper.
Yeah, he wrapped it and then decided to dispose of the parts he didn't want.
And that brings us back to where we started with a 4'9" Japanese man in Paris
with two huge
trying
trunks.
to dispose of two giant trunks full of remains.
Yep.
Now,
were they roller bags?
I don't know. He took him in a taxi too.
Yeah, and this taxi driver later testified that the guy was weird, but he didn't see anything necessarily wrong.
Except that you're going to take these two giant things, but you're going to go to a park. Like he did say that he's like, I guess I thought it was a little weird that he wasn't going to a train station or anything.
Right.
The description of like the arrest and the takedown was kind of fun.
Fun, I'll let you go through that.
Well, just I guess he was at home. I didn't write down enough about this, but like they come up and like grab him.
Then they search the refrigerator
from behind. And it's like as they're taking him out in handcuffs, he's like, yeah, I did it.
Yep. And then they find what's left of her in the refrigerator.
Yes.
And
because that was the thing when the ME or whatever gets the bags, they're horrified to discover that very obviously there are parts of the body that are missing, and they're confused at first about why.
This is the 80s. We don't hear, a whole lot about, I mean, yeah, sure, shootings and regular murders are a thing, but you don't hear a whole lot. In the 80s, I mean, I was in first grade in 81, and I can't remember ever on television ever hearing about a case where someone cut somebody up or even cut somebody up and ate them, especially, you know what I'm saying?
Right. Well, and also, again, pre-internet.
Yeah.
It's just so much harder to get all that info out about stuff.
That's what gets me. All the cases you and I study that talk about just how stupid people were trying to cover it up. I'm thinking, and this was like, most of these were like in days before the internet. I'm thinking you and I could probably do a better job covering up something in the age of social media and the internet than these people did before that. than some of these people did.
I mean, you just think about like DNA, like forensic evidence, like DNA and stuff wasn't even a thing until
the late 90s.
Really recently.
Yeah.
Well within our lifetimes.
And now they can literally find a speck of somebody's DOA on your hands now.
Yeah,
whereas,
it's crazy.
You know, then as long as you got rid of the blood and their actual body, you were usually okay, which is why I can't understand why so many of them got caught. And I've often told Tosh, my wife, if there's a murder in our little town here, I'm going to be suspect number one because of what I do.
Yeah. Well, sure. I mean, I guess we could all say that about ourselves. Although this is not exactly I don't know. Everybody likes true crime.
Yeah.
It turns out.
It's not like we're actually crazy. we have a common crazy with everyone else.
Not for this reason, anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, so he's like, it was me. He does a reverse Shaggy, and he says, definitely me. I did it. This should be
open and closed.
A slam dunk. This should be Michael Jordan going out on the court and bringing it
from the free throw line.
Instead, it's Michael Jordan playing baseball.
Yeah.
That's what happens. Instead. So every criminal in France gets a psych eval, which honestly, great idea.
Yeah. I wish we could do that here.
I think that's fantastic. They are like, this dude is cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. He is bananas. He cannot.
He's Bananarama Fana. You know,
cannot. He is Kajagoogoo. He is Tears for Fears. I'm sorry, I know. Down a rabbit hole.
But so he should be off the street in some capacity.
Yes. And so they do send him to
an asylum,
a psych hospital for like the criminally insane, where he's gonna stay. But then here comes Daddy Warbucks again
with a high-powered lawyer
with all the money and like a baller attorney. And they're like, listen, do we really want to keep him here? Let's send him back to Japan where he can stand trial there.
Basically declared him insane, incompetent to stand trial, which is understandable, but most of that comes with a caveat. Okay, if they're too insane to stand trial, they need to stay in that hospital until they are sane.
Go back into the world. Yes, but so it sounded like when the French people sent him, the people of France, the French government or whatever, send him back to Japan.
Yeah, they just let him go and deport him.
It sounded like they thought that was what was going to happen, though.
Yeah. Well, I think maybe they had some assurances from the police in Tokyo that he would be taken right back into custody.
That's what it seemed like they believed that was what was going to happen. And of course, he was going to never be allowed to come back to France.
Right.
Great. But like, it certainly seems that the French people who made that decision to deport him back to Japan had reason to believe that he was going to be taken care of.
Yeah, I think they believed he was going to be taken back into custody, either put in jail, put in a psych hospital. And I think they thought, well, let's get the tax burden off the French people and put it on the Japanese people. Yes. Probably had something to do with it.
And, I mean, he does go to a psych hospital when he first gets back to Japan.
Yeah, they do take him back into custody. But again, his father intervenes.
And I think that people in Japan and wherever are like, oh, okay, so he's going to be there forever. But then he checks himself out a year and a half later.
Because I think of a legal loophole is what they said, where basically the judge said he was incompetent to stand trial, but then also said because of that he couldn't be held, which was kind of some kind of loophole in the Japanese system. I'm sure it had to do with Daddy's intervention.
I'm sure of it.
And so he checked himself out and was never, basically from what I understand, all these years later, he's still like on the list of the criminally insane, and that he could be picked up at any time. It's just no one has bothered to do that. All it would take is a judge to sign off and say, this guy's too dangerous. But they haven't done it.
Yeah, weird. Well, and he like is living under an assumed name, obviously.
Right, under the care of his brother.
Does everyone has to know where he is, right?
Well, I'm sure. I mean, he has a very distinct look. He has a very long 4'9", very long face. It's a very distinct face. And he's become kind of a celebrity in Japan. I mean, he's written a couple of books that were published.
I think it was 20 altogether.
Yep, that were published.
20 books that are essentially, it sounds like, the first one was a book that was essentially, it was like fictionalized, I guess, but really was just a description of the crime. Which is so fucked up. That's like what O.J. Simpson did that one time.
Yeah. And he played a creepy voyeur in a Japanese horror film.
And then I have just an all caps porn.
And he's done, I guess, some porn.
Okay, so in the one that I watched, which was like the short 45-minute one, that was like a TV documentary on YouTube. I watched it. So then at this point now they're just like, for the last third of it, they're just like with him in his house
talking
with
his little robotic dog that looks like a little
weird
cocker spaniel that breathes.
It breathes. It's sleeping. It's forever in a sleeping position, but it breathes. Because he really likes dogs, but he can't have them, not because of rules about his apartment complex, but because
what he does to them.
He's not nice to animals. I guess I shouldn't be shocked. I guess of all the shocking things about this, that should be the least shocking.
Yeah. But you're like me. So often I like animals better than people. So often.
I was like, oh my God, what a monster. Okay.
Yep.
So he does like an MTV Cribs style tour of his house for these people. Don't worry, he really likes classical music. And so he's like playing classical music in there. Okay, so he says that he's sorry. He says that he's sorry to the victim and her family and everybody.
Okay. But that we have and that's fine, that's fine. But he's also sort of made a career and a living off of this from his books
and that was
and
the
his
thing,
movies.
But also,
you've profited off this.
You have profited considerably, it sounds like, off of this.
And there's no guarantee you won't just snap again and do it again. I mean, he's 70, he's 4'9", he's probably pretty frail.
I've heard he's in bad health.
Okay, well, then maybe that's why they haven't picked him back up. They know that he's not really a danger anymore.
I mean, I guess as of this one, when he was like 50, like from 2008 or whatever, he was up and around. He was going on trips, like with women,
he had female friends.
With tall white ladies. I just feel like if I would be like, no, thank you. No, thank you.
I mean, I'm not sure that has something to do with him being under assumed name, but I know his parents passed away in 2005. He inherited what was left of their estate, and then he does this weird Shinto ritual.
Yes, I saw
for
that.
them every day, and I can respect that.
I guess, except that he ruined his parents' lives.
My son's a cannibal. That's pretty much what they know about him, and Dad gets him off every time he hurts somebody.
Yes. I mean, and it sounds like they had a really hard time.
Yeah.
I mean, why wouldn't they?
Yeah.
But so he's going on these trips with ladies. He showed a picture of him and this woman in like the great outdoors taking a picture. It was like blurred out.
Mm-hmm.
So you couldn't see faces and stuff. But it seemed like the picture may have been of him like the ass of this lady. Now, my husband, Zach, said, no, I don't think that that's what that is. He said he didn't think that that was what the picture was of. But I feel like it was. And because he made a big thing to say, like, oh, it wasn't my idea to do this pose.
Okay, well, you have a lady with a very sick sense of humor. That's fine. I mean, I can understand doing a silly pose like that, but not that kind of silly pose with a known cannibal.
I'm sorry, with a person.
Okay, I can understand doing silly poses in general.
In general, yes.
But not that kind of silly pose. And not with a cannibal.
This is a different situation entirely. Mm. So then they MTV cribs into his bedroom, which just looks honestly like a masturbatorium. It's a real... And that's when he tells us that he doesn't like white ladies anymore. He likes young Japanese women now.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes me feel better.
Awesome.
That makes me feel better.
Oh, does it?
No.
Does it? No, not at all.
I want you to stay away from all women. That's my thing. I just stay away from them.
He's like, no, I definitely still want to eat people. I'm not gonna, but I definitely still want to. Why should we believe you?
We shouldn't. He should still be in the asylum somewhere.
Still be in an asylum somewhere. Yeah. Like in France, they probably get croissants at asylums there.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just saying, if I had to pick a place to be thrown into an asylum,
why not Paris?
Why not Paris? The place where they were serving really good food.
Yeah, as long as I can keep me carved up, I'll be happy.
Yes. I mean, you can say that about most situations, if we're being honest. Being carved up. This whole story is bananas.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the weirder crimes I've studied. Reminds me of, like I said, the case we talked about with the two German men. And then, of course, on YouTube, as you do, when you start looking at subjects, you get taken down into this rabbit hole.
Yes.
And with suggestions. And I saw all sorts of stuff on other crimes relating to cannibalism, and it appears it's not as unusual as it used to be.
I wonder if it's just another function of having more connectivity and having information being more available.
Yeah, I think it's just that the stuff has probably gone on at the same percentages throughout the history of the world. You think about the ancient cultures of like the Incas and the Aztecs, probably the Mayans too, some African tribes that practice cannibalism as part of their religious.
Yes. So like do you know like prion diseases?
Mm-hmm.
So Kuru, or the laughing disease, is one of them, and that, I believe, originally was happening because it was like a death ritual for indigenous people there. Which is just fascinating. Now that person, I believe, was already dead because of normal death reasons.
And then they would
but and then that was like the funeral rituals or whatever involved. That probably something to do with absorbing knowledge and whatnot, but like,
or absorbing their souls that they live on. Very spiritual, I'm sure. But so it's been a part of human. It's been a part of a lot of human cultures for a long time.
So here's the big question, Tracy.
Mhm.
Would you try human?
I would like to think no, but if I was in a situation like the Donner Party or even the
Sure.
South American rugby team where that was my only, and it was either if you eat this, you're going to have strength to hike across that mountain and get to help and get back to your family. I could probably be convinced to ingest a little bit of it as long as it was cooked or encased in snow like they did in the Andes so I didn't actually taste it.
Sure. Okay, so you wouldn't be like, if someone you knew like died of natural causes or whatever, and they were like, after I die,
No,
jerky.
I might tell them I would, and then I would just cremate them or bury them and go
Okay.
on with my life.
Interesting.
'Cause I'm a people pleaser.
Listen, I want to be like, yes, if my friend asked me to do that, I would. I think when push comes to shove, I probably wouldn't be able to.
No, I would tell them I would so that they would die happy.
Sure.
And then I would be proven a liar because I couldn't do it. Now, if it was a survival situation, like I mentioned before,
Yeah.
I could probably do it.
I think, yes. I think if it was like, you're either going to die or you.
I couldn't kill somebody to eat them, I
No,
don't think.
for sure.
But if they were already dead.
No. That's why I came up with this scenario where it's like someone who was already gonna be dead who like wanted everybody to eat them.
As in a plane crash, like, with the rugby team.
I tried to make it the Okay, here's the thing. Do you think, okay, what if this guy or other people who want to be cannibals got together with someone like an amputee, and then you could pretend like you.
I'm all for any therapy. I'm all for any therapy that would prevent those people from hurting other people. I'm all for any therapy that would prevent that. So I don't think that's too far outside the realm of believable possibility for me.
Yeah.
I know
I'm no professional of anything, really. So that could be like a thing that doesn't work.
Yeah,
or makes
it could
worse.
be. I mean, it.
Or alternately, maybe I just cured cannibalism. You're welcome.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And like I said, it's always been there. I think we just know more about these cases because of our connectivity. A lot of the stuff probably happened in secret. I mean, you've got one of my favorite is all the way back. She was one of the inspirations for Count Dracula. She was an ancient an ancient ruler of Transylvania, one of the Transylvanian provinces. Bathory, Elizabeth Bathory.
Yeah.
There were rumors about her, how she killed, and she didn't eat them, but she killed and like
bathed in the blood.
In their blood. Comes to find out that was all buckus spread by her enemies because they say because she was an independent female ruler. Her husband had died, so she was in charge of this province all on her own and had loaned the king at the time the equivalent of millions of dollars, and I think he was trying to find some way not to have to pay her back. So they trumped up a bunch of charges on this woman. Yeah, she killed people. She killed
literally anything to get out of having to pay people.
Yeah. And she killed people. Anything. She killed people like any Lord High ruler of that time would do to preserve her power, of course. But she didn't do any worse than any other ruler of that.
Yeah.
No.
I think that we as people have a fascination with any of those things that are really taboo like that, but particularly stuff like cannibalism. It's also, I think, things that it's like, you're like, I could never. And so you can feel, maybe comforted is the wrong word, but like to see, that person is bad. So I'm good. Because I would never eat a person.
Well, you think about it. Look at Vlad the Impaler. He did some awful things to both his people and the Turks. But if you look at the history, he was the only line of defense between Europe and the Turks. That was it. It was him. He did what he had to do to keep them out of Europe. And if it hadn't have been for that, Europe might have been an Islamic country today, for all we know. You know what I'm saying? An Islamic continent, just like, you know, the Middle East was or at that time. So, and still is for the most part. So he was the only line of defense. He was basically had gotten the blessings of every other Western king to protect Europe. And so he did what he had to do to keep the Turks out, and scaring the shit out of them was part of that.
I have to be honest, the past sounds like a real bummer.
I'm glad I wasn't there. I with all that's going on with COVID, I've been watching a lot of documentaries on the bubonic plague or the Black Death and the Spanish flu of 1918, which actually, and the swine flu and H1N1 and all that stuff.
The Spanish flu, because it was actually a swine flu.
It was. I've been watching a lot of documentaries on that, and I'm glad I wasn't born in that. I'm glad I didn't live in that time.
Oh my gosh. The whole thing sounds like a collective bummer. As sick of the inside of my house as I am, like, I have all the television.
I'm streaming. You and I are chatting as friends right now.
I have air conditioning. / heat. Whatever. I mean, honestly, I've got it pretty great right now from the inside of my home.
The channel and the podcast.
The like button.
Links are below. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Until
then, comment, share,
subscribe. Until then, Keto Comic out.
Bye.
I'm gonna stop recording right now. Hang on just a second.